I'm really excited about today because tomorrow we get to start, so it's one day closer. And I've appreciated a bunch what the kids did this summer, and along with Ross Galagi and our strength staff, and we're looking forward to getting going tomorrow. And it was good to have everyone show up here today and ready to go. Last week, a lot of them were finishing up some of the summer school classes, and some were able to get home for a little bit. So it truly feels like the start of, our fourth phase, before you play the season. And it was, winter conditioning is one, spring ball, summer, and then fall camp. And so enjoy continuing to get to know this group. And, we added 30-some freshmen to it, and I thought they've assimilated well with the upperclassmen. And so today, kind of have some meetings and do a lot of the media and the family fun day, but tomorrow we get going, and I think everyone's really ready to do that and excited to do that. As far as injuries, TJ Edwards is the only one that I don't know when he'll be able to, if he does anything in camp. And then we've got a handful of guys that are coming off of whether it's a surgery, like Dakota had and Dan Bolts had, or some things where they're just limited. But so right now we're fairly healthy, aside from TJ, and he's progressing and don't quite know when he'll be ready. But he'd be the only guy that I think may not do much in camp physically. So, but excited to get going and appreciate this group. And I think training camp is going to be big for this team and big for a number of individuals and certainly some position battles, most notably the quarterback. I think it's safety and I think kind of defining at the receiver spot, and then there's other positions that I think we're looking at building some depth. So it's the fun part about fall camp. It actually will go fast, and so we've got to maximize each day, each opportunity. Well, I'll answer the second part first, and that obviously Dan's played a lot of center, but Michael's also done a lot at center, and I think that most years we've gone through it, and you end up wanting to have 2 or 3 centers. So Michael started center, and Dan will end up doing both, and it'll be determined how practices go for him. Dan's coming off of what was a season-ending injury last year, and he's done a ton of stuff and worked at it, and yet we are going to be more cautious than pushing him. What I appreciate from Dan is that he is smart and he cares and he works at it, so the number of reps that he will need would be different than, let's say, a younger guy. So I think Dan and I said Dakota, there's a couple guys that we just got to see how they respond. Now they've been doing some obviously work in the summer, but it's the first time guys are doing football, and so how does that affect them? We'll be smart, and we'll be careful. All the players want to go. It's not a. That's what I appreciate about the group. You're not trying to push them. You're just trying to make sure you're smart and they're ready to go. So I don't know that answer. I think Corey needs work, and just because he's played in some games, he didn't play a ton last year, and I don't think anyone on offense is masters of the system yet, and so I think that he, along with everyone really on our team, needs the work. Defensively, there's some adjustments obviously with the new scheme, and we're doing a lot of things that play off of what they've been doing. But I think everyone's going to need the work, and they get that. And that's what I like about the group, is that we've got a lot to accomplish in fall camp, and Corey is right in the middle of that. He needs the work, and he had that sense we weren't sure how much we'd get out of him in spring, as he was coming back, and he was anxious, and he knows that he needs to get that work. So that's what, again, I like about the group is they know that we got to work. Yeah, certainly, both Jazz and Rob played a lot last year, and Rob's, I think one thing that he's got to try to do is be healthy, and I don't think he's ever gone through a spring ball or a fall camp. And there's a couple guys, Rob being one of them, that we're going to do some things to try to make sure that they get through camp. And I thought Jazz really, it was fun for me to see Jazz where he was last spring and the work that he put in and how he's grown. And I thought that he did a heck of a job last year. Probably much more as a complimentary receiver, and he's got an opportunity now to step into another role. And with Alex leaving, Rob and Jazz and Reggie are the three that have some experience. But we've got a group of guys. We've got George Rushing's a guy that's been around the program, and it's time for him to step up and into a more significant role. And I think we got some young guys as well. So that'll be a big part of this fall camp, is how does that position play itself out. I think that spring is much more individual specific. I think you can kind of make more mistakes, and you kind of want them to push the envelope. And yet I'm hesitating a little bit because I don't want to ever zap that. You're continuing to learn. You don't get to a point and you're good. I mean, all the quarterbacks have had, you hope you're continuing to learn throughout the season. I think that there's more, we should be tighter around it, with the receivers and offensively that you can gauge the quarterback, do they move the team or not. I think that's a big part of the evaluation. But the bottom line is we got to get both Bart and Alex ready to play, because one will be the starter and one will be one play away from being that guy. So I think there's a little bit more liberties in the spring, but I think you got to be careful of trying to make them in fall play where they try to play perfect, play safe, because I don't think you grow. And every one of the players that we got on this team needs to continue to grow, and our job to help them grow. And you don't grow unless you get out of your comfort zone, and so you've got to be able to do that. But I think that there is also a real component, does the quarterback move the team, and how the players respond to them, and that's why I thought both did a great job this summer, and I think our team respects both of them, and they know that both Alex and Bart care about this team and will do anything for it, and they're both competitive, and so I like where they're starting at, and really am looking forward to working with them here in fall camp, and like I said, really for me, the bottom line is that we get them both ready to play. Well, you have a lot of discussions with the players, and I thought that one thing I've thought with Corey is that he's taken what he went through last year and has tried to learn from it, and then try to apply. Then you got to put that into action and applying it. And we were just talking about that with quarterbacks. So you got to get out of here. You got to learn, and sometimes you learn by making mistakes. And you know what? That was Corey last year. Some of it on the field with injuries, and some of it off the field. And I think that he's taken all that to heart, and he wants to be the best player he can be, but also the best person he can be. And I think he values this team, and he wants to be a good teammate. And I also believe that Corey knows that part of him being a good teammate is being there. We can depend on him. I think he's a guy that feels like we're a better team with him playing. And so I've liked where he's at. And you know what? He's going to have new challenges that come up. And, you've got to continue to grow and work through them. But I think last year is not a year that he would want to script out. But I think he's tried to learn from it, and I appreciate that about him. I thought that for David, it might be the best position for him, and I think it's an area that we certainly want to and need to have depth. I don't think any position move, you do it for two things, but I think they both have to be part of it, and that's, is it right for the individual? And is it good for the team? You know, if it's good for the individual and good for the team, then you do it. So we thought it was going to be good for David and good for our team. And, you know, as far as the depth at the tight end position, you know, Fooms played a lot of football, and I think he's the guy that's got to step into a new role. Eric Steffes has been around. If we can keep him, you know, healthy, I think he can add something to it. And you know, Peniston's, I think, a talented young player that's got to grow up, and then we've got some other younger players with it. And you know, we've also gone some years where we played, you know, Billy Nagy's senior year, he played some tight end. You know, we'll find roles for guys, and if they've earned them, we'll get them on the field. And I thought that we certainly finished last year with that. You know, I wasn't here for a few years, but Coach Settle talks all the time about the standard is the standard. And, you know, fortunately, if you talk about Wisconsin and the running game, that standard's been really high, you know, unusually so, but that's the standard. And I think that we will, I've liked what the guys have done, you know, in the offensive line and the tight ends and the, you know, running backs. I think they've taken it to heart and know that we got to be better. You know, that'll help our team. And so I like what they're doing. We know what we got to accomplish, and that's we got to be better. I didn't think we could consistently run the football against everyone like we wanted to, and that's what we're striving to do. And the one thing is, with a lot of guys gained valuable experience last year, and I think that they'll be better because of that. But we've got a lot of work to do. We're building the depth. You know, we've got a lot of, you know, this is not a veteran line. You know, we spent some time talking about Dan Volts, and he's played the most football. And how much can we get out of him at camp? And Michael Dieter is one guy that started every game, you know, and that was as a redshirt freshman, which is hats off to him. That's hard to do what he did, you know. Bo Benchwall and Max, you know, started a handful of games each. You know, we're excited, really excited about Ryan Ramczyk, and he's yet to play in a Division I football game. You know, and John Dietzen we're excited about. He's never played in a Division I football game. You know, Mike Capoy has played some games. You know, we're talking about David Edwards moving over to tackle. We think we're building it, and that's exciting. And what I appreciate is the kids are doing everything we're asking them to do, and that's our job to help them be the best they can be. And you know, O-line plays kind of like we're talking about with the running game. The standards, it's a high standard, and I get excited about what this line could be, but we have not arrived yet, and they know that, we know that, and that's the fun part. We get to go work on it. I think it's as much, once again, it's individual. You know, regardless, we're going to have guys that were stepping into a new role or stepping into a new position. They were going to think they weren't going to trust themselves as much, and that takes time. You know, a lot of the terminology has stayed the same. Some's a little bit different, and that was going to happen regardless. And so I think that it's, you know, it's our job to make sure they get it and feel comfortable. And once again, though, I think you're still, it's always evolving. You know, the learning and the growth is always evolving. So I sure hope it's not going to stop at the end of fall camp, and you know, I mean, for the season we're good. But I think that, you know, I think all the people involved, Justin, you know, the defensive coaching staff, the players, they've made it to where it's a been a good transition, but it is a transition. And transitions, we talked about this earlier today. The transitions are part of, I think you asked the question. I'm getting the theme of what you're kind of you know what I mean? That's part of life, and how do you adjust to it? And so we could have the same staff and all that. It's always evolving. I think you always want to address the schedule with your players, and they do it at different times, because this year they can be talking about how hard it is, and maybe previous years, you should win these games X, Y, and Z, and so I think you're always wanting to talk to them, and yet I have gotten energy from our kids, and that this is why they came to Wisconsin. When they were getting recruited, is when Vince Beagle was getting recruited, that's when we played Michigan State in the Big Ten championship game, and so they pictured, that year we played Michigan State, and we played Ohio State, we played Michigan. When you think of playing in the Big Ten, those are teams you think about playing, and certainly every year now, I think Nebraska's been in the league long enough where that's truly been a big part of it for these kids. That is the Big Ten, Big Ten West, and Iowa. So our kids are excited about it, and I'm excited about it. And the schedule every year, it's it comes out, and those are opportunities, and what we do with those opportunities, it's on us. And I think that's the beauty of it. And so we've got, I think your good established players love playing against the best, and I think your younger kids, they have a chance to grow up and to know what it means, and so I know that we are all inside the building, we're all excited about it, and so but we're also going to spend time on the ones that not everyone's talking about. Those games are going to be huge for us too. I think that's one of the things I've liked about Justin, is that a big part of what he's trying to do is make sure he knows, what can Sojourn do? What can Vince do? What can Connor Sheehy and Chikwe and Alec do? And then he'll adjust the schemes off of the players. And, very similar approach to, it's what I believe in. And so I think that's where we were able to hit it off, is that, and again, I think he'll continue to, I know I go through that, where you continue to find out who they are, and it's once something happens, might be in a game, might be in a practice, week 7. Geez, he can do that, or he's finally ready. I mean, you might be working and kind of steering a kid towards that, and yet it's really not ready, because that's bad coaching if you put a kid in a position that he's not ready for yet. But if they are, and so Justin thinks that way. So you're right, Jeff. There's a ton of, you're always gaining knowledge, right? And how much can Vince handle? How much can the defensive backs handle? And so I think you're constantly evolving. But I think when you've got the approach and you recognize that, you have a tendency to do a better job. You're at least cognizant of it. I mean, I think we're looking for everyone to help us. But I think that there's a naturally certain positions that might be easier to play at an earlier age, and I think that can be some of your skill positions. I don't think running back. I think we might have a decent depth, but I think the receiver position, I think the defensive backfield position, are areas where, and it's a combination of the kids that we have and the amount of work that they can get. There's, whether it's because of low numbers or whatnot. We're excited about the young offensive linemen we have. Now, we haven't been on the field with, like I said, in football, but will 1, 2 be in the depth? We're anxious to find that out, but certainly are excited about that group. But it's a different position. I think if you're on offense, it'd be easier to maybe impact it at receiver at a young age. Doesn't mean they're a better player or a worse player, but I think some of those skill spots, it's a little bit easier. Well, I know what he's already brought, and that's Jim's he's a great teacher and has a knowledgeable and wonderful perspective on this place. And what I hope he does is impacts our players and impacts our coaches. And I know that he already has, and so I'm really confident that he'll continue to do that. And Jim's a special person, and feel fortunate to be working with him.